From Firelink Shrine, head back to the Aqueduct and through the shortcut to Lower Undeadburg. Now, instead of heading towards Capra Demon, just head straight and through this door. You'll unlock it with the key to the depths you got from beating Capra Demon. The enemies down here may look like the standard enemies you fought before, but they are definitely more dangerous, especially in the numbers present. A combo from enemies down here can destroy you, so be aware. With an upgraded weapon, you should be able to one-shot them. Down these stairs, dispatch the enemies and do a 180 to grab a soul from the corpse before heading back. Dispatch the next hollow before heading down the stairs again. There are a lot of hollows in this area and they're kind of hidden, so proceed slowly and cautiously. Many of them will jump out from behind pillars. These hollows are super weak and you can use and abuse your bow here for easy kills with headshots to completely shut down any resistance. Dispatch the rest of these enemies and head down the next flight of stairs very cautiously. Down the stairs, a dog is waiting for you. You can back up the staircase to pull it away with your bow or with your body and then dispatch it as you've done with the other dogs. Block its initial attack and then counter hit it. Ignore the pit on your left for now and focus on the sack-headed butcher in front of you. He won't be aggressive until you get close. You want to focus on killing the dog guarding the chest first. You can use your bow here for an easier pull as you'll likely aggro the butcher by walking forward. Take out the dog in the standard way and prepare to fight the butcher who will likely aggro you now. These butchers have attacks that have a lot of knockback, so fight in the center of this room to avoid being thrown off a ledge. They also have very slow and telegraphed attacks, so you can exploit backstabs once they're briefly immobilized after attacking. The safest way is by far to use backstabs, as they are extremely effective, and the butchers do have iframes while recovering from their attack animations a lot of the time. This butcher shouldn't be too difficult. Make sure now to loot the chest for the large ember. This is critical for upgrading weapons past +5 at Andre. Without it, you'll be stuck at +5 or forced to use the twinkling Titanite weapons. You'll need large Titanite shards to ascend from +5 to +6, but we will get a few shortly. Now that that's done, head back up the way you came. At the top of the stairs, turn right and run off this ledge to land on the lower part of this room. Move forward cautiously and another butcher will fall from the rafters. Dispatch this one in the exact same way as the one before. Now move forward into a room filled with barrels. Do not, under any circumstances, swing your weapon in this room. Instead, roll into the barrels to free Laurentius, the basic pyromancy instructor. Talk to him and he will return to Firelink Shrine to act as your pyromancy teacher. If you want, you can head back to Firelink right now and get a pyromancy flame and buy some useful spells like combustion from Laurentius. He will also upgrade your pyromancy flame for souls. I won't be bothering until we've completed the depths, but it is an option for you now. Now head back up and jump through the hole to get back into the room. This area is quite dangerous. It's filled with dogs, hollows, and water that impedes your movement. You can use your bow to get some kills here, or just rush to the stairs as quickly as possible and dispatch any enemies that have the gall to follow you up here. Up here, you have the high ground, and they cannot win. Head back to the chest and jump down the garbage chute behind the butcher's table. You'll now be at the top of the sewers. On the opposite side is a corpse with a spider shield. You probably have one from the Dead Man runs, but if you don't, definitely pick this up as it will be invaluable in Blight Town. Now the easiest way to complete the depths is to jump down from the spider shield, slide down the drain on the left side, making sure to hold left to avoid falling into the pit. Once at the bottom, turn right and ascend the staircase and open the door. This path acts as a shortcut to the boss and should be done before we further explore the depths. Now ascend this ladder, head up the staircase, and open the door on your left using the master key and rest at this bonfire. Now you can just go fight the boss of the depths at this point, but you will be harassed by a channeler who will shoot soul arrows at you from above. You technically can snipe it with a bow from the room before the boss, but you will lose out on a large Titanite shard, which is fairly important at this point. That means it is worthwhile to do the remainder of the intended route of the depths to take it out so you can have an easier time with the boss. This hallway contains some hollows and slimes. These slimes have very high physical defense but are weak to magic and fire, so if you went and got combustion from Laurentius, that's a good choice. These slimes can be farmed for large Titanite shards, but the drop rate is so horrendously low that it's advised to just ignore it for now. From the bonfire, take a right and head down the shortcut, but instead of going down the ladder, walk through the new hallway. Head right and kill the rats to find a great axe at the end of the hallway. Now head back the way you came. Avoid any of the slimes down here and just move forward. The box ahead of you contains a rat which will jump out to spook ya. You should kill it in a single hit. Turn left down this path and the rat will cowardly fall. Be cautious, there are a lot of rats down here. Dispatch them and pick up the sewer chamber key. This is used for unlocking the bonfire room, provided you didn't start with the master key. Now head back and through the hallway by the staircase. Head through, picking up the soul and heading through the fog gate. Put up your shield and wait for the fog to dissipate so you can actually see what you're doing. This is the room we've been looking for. It contains numerous rats and the channeler that overlooks the boss room. This channeler, like the one in the Undead Parish, does not respawn, so taking it out is your priority here. You can use the upper level to your advantage. Use your bow to pull individual rats to be killed while gaining cover from the channeler's soul arrows. You can safely shoot the channeler with your bow if he moves into a reasonable position. Otherwise, he isn't much of a threat and can be safely dispatched by blocking and countering. Kill any of the remaining rats down here. At the bottom, you'll want to head left down this hallway, taking out the giant rats from the boxes until you find a corpse at the end containing a large Titanite shard. This is extremely valuable at this point in the game, as it will allow you to take a +5 weapon to +6 at Andre. Save it for now, but it will come in handy later. This is actually all we had to do in here, and if you want, you can safely use a homeward bone to return to the bonfire for final preparations. You can continue to explore further, but be warned, basilisks inhabit this area and they emit a gas which can, and will, curse you. Curse permanently reduces your maximum health by 50%, until you can cure it by using a purging stone. Purging stones are purchasable from the female undead merchant, or Oswald of Karim. You can also cure curse by talking with Ingward in New Londo Ruins and giving him 1 humanity. The short answer is that you don't want to get cursed, and there isn't much of value down here anyways, so just double back or use a homeward bone to avoid the struggle. At the bonfire, you have some options. If you'd like to get the Armor of Thorns and some relatively easy souls, you need to fight Dark Wraith Kirk in 3 places, and this is one of them. Use a humanity item and reverse your hollowing. If you choose to do this, you will likely want to burn a second humanity and kindle the bonfire for an additional 5 Estus for fighting against Kirk and the boss shortly after. Head back down the path on your right, use the ladder to go down, then descend the staircase. Now head left and down the next staircase, but stop. Shortly, Dark Wraith Kirk will spawn if you're in human form. Kirk is a typical NPC invader, but he inflicts a lot of bleed. Your goal is to fish for backstabs, block and counter, or kick him to create openings. Kirk is an easy encounter, but yields about 6,000 souls. All the gear options he drops are not great, so don't worry about not getting any. Use these souls from Kirk and head back up, and then to Dom Hall of Xena. The armor he currently sells isn't anything special, but you will want to buy 3 gold pine resins. These will be useful on the next boss, and if not that boss, the next boss. Since you also got the large ember and a large titanite shard, you may choose to return to Andre the Blacksmith and ascend your weapon to +6. This will give you a little bit of a damage spike for the upcoming sections. Head back to the bonfire to rest and level up if you wish, then head back to Dom Null and take the hallway on your right to enter the area leading up to the boss. There's not really anything in here, but explore this area thoroughly for some fairly useless treasure before heading down to the boss fog. Before entering the boss fog, buff your weapon if you like. Gold pine resin is your favorite option, but magic weapon and charcoal pine resin will work in a pinch. Gaping Dragon may look very intimidating, but he is extremely simple and easy to exploit. Your arena is absolutely massive and you can, and should, take advantage of that. The best advice here is not to use lock-on at all. It will be detrimental in this fight. So right now, forget that it exists. The fight will likely start with Gaping Dragon slamming down its big barbed maw, followed by charging towards you. This is actually the ideal scenario for this fight. Once it slams down, stand in front of it, and you can usually get a hit or 2 on its head at this point. But if you want to stay safe, don't bother. You'll want to maintain a medium distance from Gaping Dragon and run laterally as soon as it starts moving forward to avoid the charge. This charge has a very large and lingering hitbox, and it does a disgusting amount of damage, so make sure that you give Gaping Dragon a wide berth and wait for it to stop completely before moving in. You have a gratuitous window here for moving back in, damaging Gaping Dragon, and moving back out before he resets by lifting up his Gaping Maw. Your goal for this entire fight is simply to run a reasonable distance from Gaping Dragon, bait its slam attack, which it will always follow up with its charge, avoid the charge by running to the side, then take a couple of hits before running away again to repeat the process. This is an extremely easy and consistent way to take out Gaping Dragon. It may take a few attempts to get used to the distances and timings, but once you do, you will have 0 issues beating it consistently. For the first few cycles, you'll want to focus on attacking the tail. Once you cut the tail off, you'll get the Dragon King Great Axe, which you won't ever be able to use effectively unless you invest 50 points in strength. This also neuters its tail swipe attack, which in all honesty, you'll likely never see if you've been diligent about running away from Gaping Dragon. You should be able to bait the slam into charge combo consistently. The only scary attack you need to worry about at this point is if Gaping Dragon jumps into the air. This can one-shot you. Make sure you run away and use rolls to gain additional distance from him. If it pukes all over the ground, simply keep your distance. The hitbox is much smaller than the animation would imply. Just reposition and wait for it to do another slam to charge combo. This will be a very long fight, but once you get the rhythm down, it should be extremely safe and easy to execute. While you can summon Sorcerer and Lautrec for this fight, it actually makes it much more unpredictable. Gaping Dragon will also get even more bloated HP. Sorcerer and Lautrec are likely to die here because of the massive hitboxes on Gaping Dragon. It's recommended to avoid summoning for this fight. Gaping Dragon is also technically optional. It does gate the intended route through Blight Town, which does contain a few useful things that you may want to get. Many of these are not actually end-all be-all items or spells, so you can safely skip Gaping Dragon and go through the back door to Blight Town instead, which is way easier. After the fight, you'll gain the key to Blight Town, which is our next destination. Before we go into Blight Town, you might want to do some preparations. You'll likely want to have some purple moss and blooming purple moss to cure poison and toxic. You can purchase these from the female undead merchant in the aqueduct between the depths and Firelink Shrine. The moss will help, but you can get through Blight Town without it. Also, if you still haven't killed Lautrec yet, you should do so now for the Ring of Favor and Protection, unless you've decided to see his questline through. First things first, since we got some large Titanite shards and the ability to upgrade, you'll want to upgrade your weapon of choice to +6 before we head down. You can only do this at Andre after giving him the Large Ember, which will allow you to ascend weapons from +5 to +6. Again, this represents a reasonable damage spike. Stocking up on arrows before we go down is also a very good idea. You can use the Hellkite Bridge farming location to get more money for arrows. Secondly, there are enemies in Blight Town known as Blowdart Snipers. You likely encountered them if you did the Deadman runs earlier to get the Firekeeper Soul. These enemies inflict Toxic, but do not respawn. Toxic is very strong poison and can only be cured with blooming purple moss clumps. If you don't have any blooming purple moss on you, Toxic will kill you. It's pretty much a sure thing. It will be worthwhile to kill these enemies even if you die because they don't respawn and it will make subsequent attempts through easier. Regardless of your preferred shield at this point, equip the Spider Shield. This will save you a lot of headache in Blight Town as it has a special property of blocking poison and toxic buildup. It will be invaluable and could be the difference between you reaching a bonfire and you dying in obscurity. Thirdly, Blight Town is really the first area in the game where running past enemies begins to become a very viable strategy. They are all robust and can kill you easily, either by grabs, combos, or by knocking you off the crappy boardwalks this place is made of. Your weapons are most likely not up to scratch currently, and it will take a lot of time to kill these enemies. I will suggest running past enemies at several points here, as it actually is just easier. As an alternative, you can go through the back door through Blight Town, and this bypasses pretty much everything difficult and annoying about it. You'll miss out on a few somewhat valuable collectibles, but you'll save yourself a lot of headache. You can always return here later to pick up anything you've missed once we're equipped better and have the ability to bonfire warp. I actually genuinely suggest you go through the back door. It's way faster and way easier. Fourth and finally, depending on your platform of choice and hardware specs of your PC, you will get some extreme frame drops in Blight Town. PS3 and Xbox 360 will approach single digits in certain sections, but you will have better performance on the newer consoles and on PC. Now to really get started with the legit way through Blight Town, which I absolutely do not recommend. From the Depths bonfire, head down the stairs and take the ladder down, then descend the long staircase. Past the Merchant Domhnall, and open the giant gate with the Blight Town key that you got from Gaping Dragon. Descend the ladder down into the dark madness of Blight Town. Keep your Spider Shield up at all times, as Blowdart Snipers will be at various points throughout this entire escapade. You'll encounter Poison Giants here. You can easily be knocked off the platform here if you block, so try and dodge. You'll want to try and fish for backstabs as they are the most effective methods for taking them out. You can also kill them by ring out, but it's risky. You may also just want to run past these guys if you die here too many times, which is exactly what I did. After the Poison Giant, you'll fight Blight Town's standard enemies. There are a lot of them here. I mean a lot. They also ambush you like crazy and have a massive aggro range. These guys are extremely prone to swarming you, so you will want to use your bow whenever possible to pull individuals. The easiest way to take them out is to bait one of their attacks and then back off. This will give you an opportunity to counter without consuming stamina by blocking with your shield. You need to be very aware of their grab attack, as it can and will likely catch you by surprise and potentially kill you. This path is linear, so keep progressing as normal. Eventually you'll make it to the Blowdart Sniper. Block his shots with the Spider Shield and take him out. He won't be bothering you again. Honestly, after a few attempts of doing this legitimately, if you die, just run past everything. Or consider backtracking and going through the back door to Blight Town. At the end of this path, you can choose to go over some precarious walkways, or do a jump to land on the other side and pick up a Japanese sword. This is a decent weapon for dex builds, but dex builds are lame. Sorry, not sorry. Now jump down to your right and rest at this bonfire if you dare. If you're struggling with Blight Town up to this point, now is your chance to reconsider the path down. You can always homeward bone or die to get back to the depths and return to Firelink to make the easier way down. Otherwise, rest at the bonfire. From here on out, do not be afraid of doing suicide runs for items. You're likely to die here a lot from ambushes, getting worn down by toxic, and just simply falling to your death. Also, because From hates us, one of the blow dart snipers is actually in range of this bonfire if you neglected to kill it on the way down, so that's fun. From this bonfire, we can pick up the most valuable pickups in Blight Town. The first being the Eagle Shield, the lightest great shield in the game. To get the Eagle Shield, you want to progress forward, killing any of the dogs and standard enemies around. These dogs are smaller than the ones in the lower Undeadburg, but are just as threatening. Drop down the side, and then drop down this ladder. Work your way around this path and you'll eventually find a stone arch. At the bottom is a corpse with the very valuable Eagle Shield. The Eagle Shield unfortunately does not have 100% physical block, so you will take chip damage, but it does offer very high stability. The chip damage you suffer is marginal, and the high stability can be worthwhile for some encounters. Consider it a reasonable option for a few fights. You'll likely die here, but if not, you can backtrack to get down, or just kill yourself. Follow the same steps to get the Eagle Shield otherwise, but instead of dropping down, clear the path down and opposite from the Eagle Shield. This is a very hazardous area filled with Blight Town inhabitants, and a poison giant will also aggro you. Just be cautious and take hits as you can get them while being safe. You will want to clear this area out of all enemies. Once you do, you'll want to pull out your bow and aim for the legs of the giant wall-hugging leech. Do not try and melee this leech. It will thrash around and will likely throw you off the edge, forcing you to redo all your progress. Eventually, with enough arrows, you'll kill it, and you can pick up the Pyromancy Power Within. Power Within increases your damage output and stamina recovery rate, but will continually drain your health. It's like having poison on. This is a great way to increase your damage output, but it can be a problem for some players. Keep it in your back pocket. There will be a few encounters where it is strongly recommended to use it. The downside of continual health drain isn't actually nearly as bad as it sounds, especially considering the direct damage output increase and indirect damage increase through enhanced stamina regeneration you get from it. It also works on spells, so that's pretty nifty. Turn around from the leech and head down the ramp, turning left into the cave. Cautiously work your way down here. The whip is somewhere around here, but the whip sucks and you don't want it, and it's by far one of the worst weapons in the game, so don't at me. Enter the fog, and continue progressing down the ladders, watching out for blow darts. Ignore the cave on the side, and continue walking down the boards. We're getting really close. These chaos bugs are vicious and have a dangerous fire attack. They aren't that difficult though. You can wait for their fire breath to finish before countering. This part is extremely precarious. It's easy to fall on something that isn't actually ground, and then slide down to your death. Just slowly work your way down. Keep your shield up at all times, as otherwise you're likely to be inflicted with toxic. If you do get inflicted with toxic, ignore the enemies and make a run to the bottom of this tower. Take a right at the bottom and you'll eventually enter a sewer, which thankfully has the bonfire for lower Blight Town. Obviously rest at this bonfire. If you can't, quickly quit out to drop any aggro that you might have, then once you get back in the game, rest at the bonfire. So that was pretty hard, so here's the shortcut method. This is significantly easier than the previous method and yields the same result of the bonfire in the swamp below Blight Town. If you value your sanity, you should just do this. From Firelink Shrine, head down to New Londo Ruins in the Valley of Drakes, just like we did during the initial Deadman runs. Now instead of going through the sewer to get the Firekeeper soul, continue heading down. Eventually you'll reach a water wheel. This acts as an elevator between Valley of Drakes and lower Blight Town. Cautiously jump on it and ride it to the bottom, then head down the ramp and continue to your left to reach the sewer and bonfire. Way easier, right? This is by far the recommended path to take. From here, there are some more suicide runs you can do. The swamp contains a lot of valuables, but it will poison you if you stand in it for too long. Equipping the black leather set can improve your poison resistance slightly, but you'll get poisoned regardless. It's recommended at this point to spend your souls if you have any, and do some suicide runs for the valuables in the swamp. This will let you hold on to your purple moss for when we do boss attempts. If you continue backwards from the bonfire, you'll find a chest with a dragon scale. You can use this to upgrade the Drake Sword, but it costs 10,000 souls and only increases your damage by 20. Unfortunately, the Drake Sword, even when upgraded, has just outlived its usefulness at this point, and standard weapons are starting to become much more reliable. Now you should do some suicide runs around the area for the following items. The Pyromancy set, and more importantly, the Pyromancy Poison Mist. It's basically a straight shot from the bonfire. Now back at the bonfire, it's recommended to use 2 humanities. Use the first to turn to human form, then use the second to kindle the bonfire, giving you 10 Estus. In human form, try and leave the sewer, but head immediately back inside. You should be invaded by Maneater Mildred. You definitely do not want to fight her in the swamp, so lure her next to the bonfire by just waiting around. Mildred uses a very specific attack pattern, which can be exploited by simply walking backwards. Otherwise, typical NPC encounter strategies will work, including fishing for backstabs. Once Mildred is dead, you're going to want to rest at the bonfire again to reset your Estus and spend your souls. Now it's time to head to the boss guarding the second Bell of Awakening. From the bonfire, turn right and just head straight from here. Grab the large Titanite shard on your left when you can, but continue holding to the right as you'll avoid a lot of aggro from the poison giants down here. After you reach the large cocoon area, head left to the center. These enemies in here are non-aggressive, so just leave them alive. Head to the boss fog and use a purple moss clump to get rid of your poison and heal up to full using your Estus or a spare humanity if you wish. Chaos Witch Quelaag is actually quite intimidating at first glance. She does a lot of damage, but more importantly, she actually has a lot of health. We don't have a lot of damage output at this point. Gold pine resin will help a lot here if you have any left, otherwise magic weapon or charcoal pine resin in a real pinch. There are a few strategies and nuances to the fight with Chaos Witch Quelaag. First, if you hit her in her amazing chest, you will stagger her. You can do this with an arrow, a magic attack, or if your weapon has an overhead swing, like a halberd, it'll also work. Any damage to the human part of Quelaag should trigger this stagger. You can use this in the fight in a few interesting ways, which we will get into shortly. Now there are actually a few safe spaces to stand in this fight. She's swinging her sword. She will never hit you if you're standing directly beside the large spider head. Just snuggle up in here, between the head and her front leg, and you should be completely safe. This will also largely insulate you from the lava spew attacks. This means, for the most part, this is the safest place to be. The other is to be beside her and hit her rear leg that sticks out at a few points during certain attacks. You'll want to avoid being directly behind her, as she will shake that big old donk and it's got a fairly large hitbox and it does a lot of damage. Or, more dangerously, she'll discharge hot air out of it, and it happens very quickly. Since there are safe places to stand to avoid most of her attacks, you won't really be needing your shield for this fight. Make sure you're able to fast roll by equipping lighter armor and do favor fire defense. The most deadly attack she has is a large area of effect explosion around herself. This has a very obvious tell. Her human part will lean over to hug the spider head. This is your warning to get out. Turn tail and start sprinting away from her to avoid it. Alternatively, if you have the stamina, 3 fast rolls backwards should be enough to get clear. This attack deals a lot of damage and it can probably one-shot you, but it is easy enough to dodge with a long wind-up. You should actively be paying attention to her human torso for most of the fight because of this, and not, the other reason. Just like Aping Dragon, this fight is another one where you'll want to avoid locking on. You'll lock onto strange parts of Quelaag and it'll be more difficult to see what's going on in the fight. Lock on is a hindrance here for the most part. It will obstruct your vision and it's much easier to get caught in the lava trails she leaves behind. Your main goals here are just to snuggle in between that ugly mug and the spider leg. If she's attacking you with her sword, you're perfectly safe. If she's spewing liquid hot magma, you will have to adjust. Just move to the side and target her rear leg or body. Then get a moderate distance away from her and try to pull her away from the magma so you don't accidentally get stuck in it. If she ever goes down to hug the head, you need to get the heck out of dodge. Either sprint directly away from her or roll 2 or 3 times backwards and you should avoid it. Then snuggle back into position once the shockwave is gone. The shockwave does linger, so give it a little bit of time. This should make the fight fairly painless. If you still have gold pine resin, now is the best time to use it. Magic weapon will also work in a pinch. Charcoal won't be very effective, nor rotten pine resin. A weapon at +6 is your preference here if you can get one. If you're using sorcery, this fight is basically free. Just stand a moderate distance from her to bait a magma spew and shoot her with soul arrows. Then move back and kite her with soul arrows until she dies. It's a joke of a fight. For magic, you basically have to use lock on as it's significantly harder to hit it without it. Otherwise, you snuggle into your safe space beside her spider head, take a hit or two every so often, and make sure to manage your stamina. The alternative strategy is to summon Maneater Mildred. You'll need to be in human form for this to work. You can summon Maneater Mildred to the left of the boss fog in Quelaag's domain. Mildred does deal a decent amount of damage against Quelaag, but she can actually be killed deceptively easily. The strategy here is to basically lock down Quelaag with arrows, allowing Mildred to deal reasonable damage for you. When Quelaag focuses on you, shoot her human torso with arrows, allowing Mildred to do her thing. If Quelaag is focusing on Mildred, you're free to safely attack her from the side with your melee weapon if you choose, or just try to hit her with more arrows. You should actually be able to completely lock down Quelaag even when she's focusing on Mildred by sniping her. It's an easy way to take her out if you have enough arrows. Just like summoning any NPC, if Mildred dies suddenly, you can quit out for another attempt. After the fight, head through the now faded fog wall and ring the second bell of awakening. After ringing the second bell, our current goal is to go back up to the Undead Parish and enter Sen's Fortress, but there is some stuff we can do down here. The main goals are to gain access to a covenant and do one simple boss encounter. Descend the stairs and look for a hidden wall. Most of the time, players will mark it with a sign. You'll meet the pyromancy Eingi here, who's covered in eggs. Answer yes to his question, and he'll scuttle out of your way, revealing a bonfire and Quelaag's sister. Absolutely rest at this bonfire. It's important that you gain access to this, as it will provide a valuable shortcut later on when we return to the Demon Ruins. You can speak to Quelaag's sister to gain access to the Chaos Servant Covenant. We will be joining this covenant later, but you can do so now if you wish. You'll be rewarded with the pyromancy Great Chaos Fireball. This can be a good addition to your arsenal as it leaves liquid hot magma that lingers, which can be good for multiple enemy encounters. After you've done all that, leave this area and head right to enter the Demon Ruins. Now, there's actually a second bonfire that you can rest at. Most of these egg guys are non-aggressive, and even the ones that are aggressive can be safely avoided. If you want, you can get infected by these guys by having them grab you. You'll know when you're successfully infected as your character will scratch their head. You'll have reduced soul gain until you gain enough souls and the egg hatches. The only reason for you to do this is to gain access to Eingi as a pyromancy teacher. With an egg head, visit Eingi and he'll give you an egg vermifuge, which will cure your infection. He will also share his pyromancy flame with you, provided you didn't get Laurentius's. He'll also sell you a second poison mist and toxic mist pyromancy, and upgrade your pyromancy flame from now on. It's not really recommended to do this, as the reduced soul gain for a while really sucks. The egghead also changes your kick attack, which also kinda sucks. It's an option for you to try that you probably should avoid, and just head down the hill and cross the bridge to enter the boss fog. Ceaseless Discharge is currently non-aggressive. You want to run down the linear path here until you find a corpse with a collectible. Pick this up for the gold hemmed set, which makes you look like a ring wraith from Lord of the Rings. As soon as you pick this up, Ceaseless Discharge becomes aggressive. Your goal is simply to run back to the boss fog. This is kind of a crapshoot, but Ceaseless should follow you all the way. If you're lucky, he'll jump at you and cling for dear life over the edge. Just hit his tentacle about 5 times and he'll fall to his death. You'll be rewarded with souls, and the magma will clear up around the Demon Ruins. If you're unlucky, you'll get killed by a fire blast and have to retry the whole thing. If this happens, I usually just come back to this part later. Regardless, once the magma's cleared, you can now access the Demon Ruins properly, except for the fact that there's an orange fog gate blocking your path and it's currently impassable. So we have to go the intended route of the game by going through Sen's Fortress. From the Demon Ruins or Chaos Servant bonfire, head back to the lower Blight Town bonfire by just sprinting there. Rest of this bonfire to reset your spawn position, then head to your right and take the ramp up on your right. Step onto the elevator once it comes around and take the water wheel up. Climb the ladders up here. If you haven't already, now is the best time to grab the Blight Town Firekeeper soul by jumping down onto the dogs in the sewer. If you already have it, just continue your ascent to the top of Blight Town. Oh look, we're here. Run past these poison giants, they're not worth your time. Exit to the Valley of Drakes and head through the gate. Head back through New Londo and up to Firelink Shrine. Absolutely make sure to rest at this bonfire. You don't want to die here and have to do that whole run from Blight Town all over again. Now that we're out of godforsaken Blight Town and return to the eerie calm of Firelink Shrine, there is a new addition to Firelink and you're free to chat with him for some more background if you want to put up with his stupid grin. Framped will also act as an item disposal service, netting you a paltry sum of souls. He can also be used to break down Titanite, but this is usually a waste. He'll break chunks into large shards and large shards into small shards. It's usually not worth the time as the higher tier materials are rarer and therefore more valuable. If you did not kill Lautrec, your Firekeeper will be dead and the bonfire will be out. Pick up the dingy set from her corpse. The next closest bonfire is in the Undead Parish, which also happens to be our next destination. Take the shortcut and sprint through the parish to the blacksmith shop and rest here to set your spawn point. The gate to Sen's Fortress is now open after ringing both bells of awakening. But before that, it's best to do some preparation since we won't be returning to Firelink Shrine for a while in the next video.